semester students with us today. The gentleman from Charlottesville, Mr. Toscano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request and a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, a request, and I've told the patron this, on page 15, if HB 1334 could go to the regular calendar.
Without objection, House Bill 1334 to the regular calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now the point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, today's Equality of Virginia's day of action, and though they have left the gallery now, they're probably somewhere in the Capitol. Equality of Virginia, as you heard from the gentleman from Fairfax, argues on behalf of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender communities in the state legislature and around the Commonwealth. They work to introduce bills promoting equality and oppose bills that many believe are backward. Today, equality for gay, lesbian, and transgender and bisexual communities is still contested terrain. Equality for other groups, although not as apparent, still remains. The good news, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, is that as we continue to consider these bills, we also profess, and continue to do so, the words from the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes, the pursuit of happiness. Virginia has frequently been on the front lines of the battle for equality, usually in the legal system, whether it was Brown versus Board of Education. As you remember, one of the cases that went to the Supreme Court as part of that case was a Virginia case. Loving versus Virginia, which was the case that allowed interracial marriage. And, of course, Bostick versus Schaefer, which never actually got to the Supreme Court, but got bound up in all the arguments that led to the constitutional rights of same-sex marriage. Now, despite many setbacks in Virginia over the years in terms of equality, it's certainly a lot better than it was 50 years, 10 years, 5 years, even 2 years ago. And part of the reason for these changes in Virginia, ladies and gentlemen, has to do with the legal terrain, which has changed quite a bit. But also the social values and mores have changed in Virginia as it has around the country. But finally, a big part of the change has to do with economics and what's happening in the economy among major employers to bring about change. I've heard it said before that commerce is the engine of change, and I think that's true regarding this issue as well, because major employers around the Commonwealth, around the country, are recognizing that non-discrimination is good for business. In fact, 91% of the Fortune 500 companies now have non-discrimination in employment clauses in their employer handbooks. And we also know about entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have difficulty finding talented workers, and they want to be able to recruit them not just in-state, but out of state. To the extent you have a hostile work environment, it's difficult to recruit, and that's especially true in the tech sphere. And if you ask a millennial about this, they would tell you that there's no place for discrimination in employment in Virginia. But, Mr. Speaker, in this session, we are again seeing efforts to take us backward. And instead of working for equality, working to ensure that citizens aren't fired or denied promotion because of their orientation, what do we see? We see efforts to police bathrooms in schools. Instead of embracing equality and working to ensure that people can live where they please, to rent and own houses in places of their desire, we see legislation to prevent a constitutional officer who swears an oath to the Constitution to just say no to carrying out their duties and discriminate because of their personal beliefs. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, carved into the walls of this building are the words of Jefferson, and I quote, "The most sacred of the duties of government is to do equal and impartial justice to all its citizens, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I hope we will continue to keep those words in mind as we deliberate on these bills for this session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.